Good Tuesday to you, buddy, everybody, again in Gov 603. Welcome to week boom, bam, 12 and the review for week 11. I got to tell you, I am way past sufficiently caffeinated because I've been up early. So we're just going to get a little water this here. Much better. Okay, let's take a look at the questions from week 11 and your answers there too. Also, just a couple of heads up in terms of things that you should be on and looking towards. All right, so it's the 7th of November, and our final exam is in December. So, it is a comprehensive exam, and the way that you prepare for it, very similar to the way you prepare for the midterm. Make sure that you go through all the discussion sections. And, the exam is going to be, between the 4th and the 5th of December. Make sure you go through all of the discussion questions and make sure you can identify the terms and articulate the concepts. And also make sure that you have watched my videos, because there are going to be things that I cover in the video, that may come up in the questions on the final exam. Now, unlike the midterm exam, I am not going to give you a review sheet. That is, I'm not going to list terms. If it's in a discussion section, maybe I'm not sufficiently caffeinated. If it's in a discussion question, then it's fair game for a question for the final exam. Okay. So make sure that, it's less than a month. So, now's the time to start going back, reviewing discussion boards 1 through 8. Then, we have modular week, and then it's going to be 10 through 14, and we won't have anything in the last day. Okay. And likewise, your research paper, that is part 2, second part to the full thing, and that includes part 1, in there, is due on the 3rd of December. So that's less than a month from now. Okay. So just to, nothing to panic about, just a couple of things to keep your eye on as we move through the back half of the semester. Okay, let's take a look at the questions from week 11 and see what you said and see what we can add. We're looking at case studies. What are they? Why are they? Who, why should you do them? Who cares? Okay, and I gave you a couple of articles, or an article and a video. No, 2 articles, sorry, an article and a chapter. Yeah, I'll get this to look at, to get your head around that. And this week you're doing regression. We may do some more data calculation in the coming week, week 13. Okay, question number 1, according to Van Evra, why are case studies helpful in testing theories? Natalie, let's see what you had to say. Van Evra highlights that case studies are valuable assistance in theory testing. For instance, case studies enable researchers to search for real-world phenomenon and help for various reasons as well. In addition, case studies involve data collection, which enables a better understanding, I think, of the phenomenon. Researchers have the opportunity to analyze theories in order to test their effectiveness in explaining. Okay, that's an incomplete sentence. And explaining. Okay, all right. So basically, you're getting the drift here. That a case study helps you decide, if to put it one way, helps you decide to determine if there's a there. Maybe you're looking at a phenomenon. Let's say voter turnout let's say that candidates are allowed, which they're not, but let's just pretend candidates are allowed to give speeches right up to and including the day in which you vote. Okay. Does that affect voter turnout? Now, we know the answer to that, and the answer is yes. And so they're not allowed. They have to stop campaigning. There's a cutoff point, and then we go vote. But let's say that we didn't. Okay, and you have a hunch. You're like, those candidates that really give those fiery speeches that can rile up the crowd, they seem to have a better voter turnout, but I'm not sure. I'm just not sure. Right. If you did a case study, that is, if you put together a hypothesis and you looked at just select evidence, not the entirety of a full-blown study, put together a theory and a hypothesis, a case study would help you test it. All right. Okay. So question number 2 really feeds into that, comes from that question number 2. What are case studies? How and why should they be performed? Patrina, let's take a look at what you said here. Case studies are methods used in research that entail in-depth and comprehensive investigation of a particular instance or a small number of situations with a larger context. Okay, that sentence is a bit garbled, but we understand what you mean. In other words, you're taking a small slice of a much larger population segment. You're running a few tests. You might even, a lot of case studies are conducted by just sitting down and talking to people, by doing interviews. They're qualitative. And then you get a sense that there's a phenomenon at work. There's a trend here at work. Now you have to be careful when you do a case study, that what you don't do is select a narrow group of participants, because that's going to bias your outcome. And then you're going to go, whoa, hey, there's a giant phenomenon happening here. We better get on a larger study. So just like any other research, when you do a case study, you want to make sure that you select at random, that there's no selection bias, so it doesn't tilt the indicators of the case study one way or another. Okay, good answer. Question number 3. Please explain what Van Evera meant when he wrote in chapter 2, are the converging laws intervening phenomenon observed in the case? In other words, turn that research speak back into plain English, right? Jacob, Van Evera means by the statement is that the researcher should be able to find and analyze sufficient observational evidence of the case's cause and effect that confirm the hypothesis, or test the hypothesis, really, whether it's confirmed or not, and overarching predictions that form the case. All right. So in other words, is there a there? Because that's the purpose of a case study. And then you go on, Jacob, say, for example, if a researcher believes that an asteroid killed the dinosaurs, there should be evidence of the killing process that the impact would create, which links the cause and effect of that prediction. Okay. And then you cite the author. Yeah. Excellent. Exactly right. Okay. Question number 4. Of the 11 case selection criteria listed by Van Evera in chapter 2, select 2 and explain why they are crucial to constructing a useful case study. So, a lot of you pick different ones, and that's fine. Nicole, Van Evera gives 11 case selection criteria. 1, data richness, true extreme value, independence, etc., etc., etc. So you select, after you list all 11 data. And by the way, I'm not gonna hold you accountable for memorizing all 11, but be familiar with them because you may see them in a question. Okay. Anyway, back to you, Nicole. Data richness is crucial to constructing a useful case study, since researchers get more answers to questions with more data, and with more answers, more tests can be done. Okay. And then prototypicality of case background conditions is also crucial to constructing a useful case study, since researchers may select cases with average or typical background conditions on the grounds that theories that pass the test these cases pose are more likely to be applied to other cases. Okay. What in the world is this? Let's turn this into English. And good answer, Nicole. Okay. So data richness. So you want to make sure that there's plenty of data and it's randomly selected. Prototypicality. I mean, the word prototypical means that this thing is representative of the larger thing, right? Prototypical behavior, like prototype. All right. So when you're selecting cases, and in your data rich cases, all right, you want to make sure that you select cases with, and then here we cite the author, average or typical background conditions. Okay, so they, whatever you're studying, voting patterns, responses to speeches, reaction to how you educate the public about medical issues, whatever. All right. And you can look at other people's research too, by the way, that they have done research. Okay. That's also common in case studies. You want to look for research in which, or cases in which, the background conditions are typical of what it is you want to study. So let's go to the COVID example, the data that you received on COVID, and you did the simple linear regression. Let's say you're going to do case studies to see, you're just kind of wondering, you're working in a hospital and you notice that people with type 2 diabetes, or back that up, you notice that those who have severe outcomes seem, you notice they have type 2 diabetes. You go, I wonder if there's a connection there, but I don't know. Maybe it's just a fluke. It's just the people that I'm getting this month while I'm on my shift and I'm tired and I can't tell. Okay. So you start looking at research by others. So you're going to use that for your case studies, who have been accumulating data on severe outcomes with COVID-19 infections and tracking, do the people who have these severe outcomes also have type 2 diabetes? All right. But they have excluded from their studies heavy smokers. And they have excluded from their studies people who don't, access healthcare at all. That is, they have these enormously long periods of time in which they never see a doctor and they could have cancer and they don't know it. And they're like, what's this lump? I'm too worried. I don't have any insurance. Okay. If those sorts of people, heavy smokers, people that don't access healthcare, are not representative of the people that you're looking at, don't use those studies, because that wouldn't be prototypicality. Okay, does everybody understand? Okay. Question number 5. So I threw some data at you because I want you to get into the mode. I want you to get into the groove, the habit as researchers of being critical of data that you see. Look at methodology. Where did this stuff come from? Well, what does it mean? Is it representative of something, or is it skewed? Is it biased? Okay, so I gave you the life expectancy versus healthcare expenditure 1970 to 2015 chart with a link. Okay. And then I asked you to answer the following. As of 2015, which country spends the most per capita on healthcare? So now we're just looking at the raw data. Now, we're going to assume that they've gathered this in an open and honest way and they've used good sources. They're not playing any tricks with the numbers. We're just going to put that aside. Question number 2, as of 2015, how much did the U.S. spend per person per year on healthcare? And question number 3, compare the U.S. to any one of the European countries listed, with which of the two countries gets more lived years per person per yearly health care expenditure. In your opinion, is U.S. healthcare expenditure efficiently serving the U.S. population? Why or why not? Okay. All right. So, that required you to sort of crunch some data and then make a determination. Jacob, you're right at the top. Let's do you. Comparing the U.S. to Switzerland in 2015, Switzerland gets more lived years per person per yearly healthcare expenditure. And by the way, when we say healthcare expenditure, we're talking about how much governments spend on people, not how much people spend on people. Okay, so when they say country, they're talking about the citizens of the country and then how much government spends. Okay. So anyway, back to Jacob. Switzerland spends just over $60,000 per year per person. Their life expectancy is 82.8. United States spends shy of 9,000. It's like 8,000 something dollars a year per person. Life expectancy is 78.9. All right. So that's, 3 years. That's nothing to sneeze at. I mean, if someone told you we could kill you now or you have 3 years, yeah, I'll take the 3 years. If someone were just comparing per capita expenditures to life expenditure, the two countries, Switzerland is getting more gain for their investment. Based solely on the data provided by the graph, the U.S. healthcare system is not effectively serving the U.S. population. Life expectancy is lower than other developed countries, spend much less on healthcare. However, this is important. I like what you're doing here, Jacob. It is hard to say how efficient the U.S. healthcare system is compared to other countries because there are dozens of factors that need to be considered when making a claim, such as quality of healthcare. Actually, that's not one of the factors because we have extremely high quality, but we're going to get to some factors. Types of systems, prices of medications, behavior, that's good, and behavior of the population after receiving care or even before receiving care, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so be careful of just these studies that throw out these raw numbers because, yes, I mean, it's true. We have one of the lower life expectancies among industrialized nations, and we spend the highest amount for that lower life expectancy. But we have fewer regulations about what can go into food and what you can eat. So in many European countries, including Switzerland, for instance, there's a whole slew of advertising that's completely illegal. They couldn't sell, you're not allowed to sell people chips and snack goods and things that drive indicators of bad health. Okay, here you are. All right, now, so the question becomes, this is why this is a political question. Where do the weights fall on the balance? Do you say, well, since it's our money collectively, because the government doesn't make anything, that it derives its revenue through taxation. Since it's our money, the populace, that's being spent on us, the populace, because remember, this chart is how much governments are spending. Do we, the populace, therefore inherit the right to restrict what we, the populace, do that impacts health? Now, in European countries, they've said, yes, absolutely. Since we, the populace, are paying for this, we, the populace, are going to restrict what can be said about foods, what can be put into foods, what can be sold in certain places. Now, we're starting to see that sort of creep in the United States. There are some states that disallow the selling of high sugar consumptive items. I was going to say food, but they're not really food. Soda. I mean, now look, this is my own thing. This got nothing to do with the data or the questions. Okay, I don't buy, sodas out of the question. I don't buy diet soda. I got to be very honest with you folks. I don't understand it. There are PhDs, dissertations being written for anthropology students, 100 years in the future. Good luck trying to explain a multi-billion with a big B dollar industry that produces a liquid which has no nutritive value, and because of a high sodium content is not really a net positive by way of hydration. So, I mean, step back and think about that. And explain that to a room full of first year undergraduates. They're like, why did they drink this stuff all the time? Okay, so that's me. I don't do that. But there are now states in that say, no, you can't sell high sugar consumptive items like soft drinks, like candy in schools, because it's a captive audience. That is, the kids aren't going anywhere. They have to be in the building. Okay, we as the school can't predict what food they do or don't have by way of what's been sent with them from home. And since we're here educating them, which means not only just accumulation of knowledge, it means accumulation of habit. How you spend most of your life learning how to learn. Okay, so it's accumulation of habit. By way of health, this is not a habit that's good to have. That is consumption of high sugar items. Health-wise, that's just bad for an individual across the board. Okay, so this is sort of starting to creep in, but in European countries, this isn't even, it's like, why is this even the debate? So where do you put the weight on the scales? Do you put the weight in favor of saying, personal liberty and personal autonomy? That's one of the things that we value here as a country. You get to do what you doggone well please. And then, that becomes more important, and that we have to keep spending more and more money and getting less and less bang for the buck because of behavioral factors. Well, that's the price that we all collectively pay because we value this. Or do you say, hey, It's not like each of us have a money tree in our backyard and this stuff isn't going to go on forever. If you, the populace out there, expect us, the populace out there, to pay for your stuff, we're talking about Medicaid, Medicare, then we have a right to say we're restricting your behavior, or we're not paying for it. So if you develop a condition because you smoked, we're not paying for it. And in Western countries, Canada is one of them. And Great Britain is one of them. If you develop a serious condition because of smoking, say cardiovascular disease, and you need an operation, you need to have a bypass. That is, a bypass is basically if you have the heart has all sorts of vessels that feed it and some right on it, and especially arteries, if they become inflamed and clogged, then basically they just take a little artery, usually from your leg, attach it like a little hose, attach it here, and then loop, attach it on here, so the blood, instead of stopping here, goes bypass. Okay, just as the name suggests. If you need a bypass, you get put way down the list. You have to wait longer than someone that needed cardiac surgery because of, say, a traumatic injury or something they were born with. Okay, so number one, be careful of raw data that's thrown out to you. And I'm not saying we do a great job spending. That's not my point. The point is, be careful of the raw data that you read, and also be aware that you want to push somebody's political buttons. Start talking about their health or their money. And if you really want to push their buttons, start talking about both of them. All right, I'm going to take one more for this. Melissa, you say the country that spends most per capita, the United States. U.S. spent $8,700 per year on healthcare compared to one of the European countries. United States and Italy. Italy gets more lived years per person per yearly healthcare expenditure. It's evident that the U.S. healthcare expenditure is not efficiently serving the U.S. population. Okay, now be careful of that too. It may very well be that it's efficiently serving the U.S. population, but what you might be saying is that the U.S. population is not efficiently serving its own health, and you can't pill or inject or operate away systematic conditions that are grounded in behavior. I mean, that's got nothing to do with the data. That's simply how your health works. It's like if you're trying to lose weight, you cannot exercise your way to lose weight. I mean, if you don't believe me, just look up how many calories you expend, say, running a mile, as opposed to eating a Snickers bar, which I love, by the way. They're like my kryptonite. Okay, I finally had to tell my wife with with these big bowls of Halloween candy, because we live in a neighborhood with lots of kids. I'm like, take it away, hide it. She did hide it, but she failed me because she hid it in such an obvious place that I found it anyway. Say I'm not responsible for my own candy bar habit, but anyhow, look at how many calories you expend by running a mile. I mean, really intensely, and then how many calories you get from eating a Snickers bar. Can't happen. Systematically, we have to change how we eat, when we eat, what we eat. We have to change how we sleep, when we eat, when we sleep, how we sleep, these sorts of things. Okay. Let's see, back to you, Melissa. The U.S. has the lowest life expectancy, yet spends most on healthcare. Things definitely do not, quite frankly, never added up. Well, they do in a way, Melissa, and I'm not knocking your answer. You're onto something here, but there are missing factors. There are other variables. So beware of studies that they go, yeah, okay, yeah, there's something going on here, but there are other variables. The U.S. has always been the worst healthcare system compared to the rest of the world. Okay, see, now you've come to a conclusion based on the data, okay? Actually, our healthcare system, by way of the quality of healthcare and the access to it, is the best in the world. And again, Melissa, good answer. I'm not picking on you. It is absolutely, completely legal to stop anyone from just walking into a hospital like an emergency room, whether they can pay for it or not, and say, treat me. The facility has to treat them. My son is a firefighter and an EMT. And it is absolutely required by law that if they show up to somebody's house and that somebody says, take me, and he sometimes works the ambulance and sometimes works the fire truck, and they say, take me to the hospital, they are absolutely obliged to take this person to the hospital. They have insurance to cover the ride to the hospital. Maybe, maybe not. Do they have insurance to cover the expense once they get to the hospital? Maybe, maybe not. The firefighters and the ambulance personnel aren't even allowed to ask. All right. So by way of care that's delivered, our system is great. Our system is great. But you're right, Melissa, that there's something here that doesn't add up. Okay. So be careful when you just, you see data thrown out in these studies. All right, everybody, 25 minutes is enough of me. Okay. Good job. So this week, keep working on regression with categorical variables and understanding what that is as opposed to continuous. All right. And go back, start looking at those discussion boards and getting, familiar. You'll have questions that were like the midterm, but I'm not going to just repeat questions from the midterm. I mean, come on. That would insult your intelligence. All right. And then keep working on those papers. Okay, everybody. Have a great, great rest of the week. I think about you. I pray about you. And I will see you on Canvas. Bye-bye.